Oil as abiogenic. Petroleum may be a natural product of the Earth crust. For over 100 years, we've been told that oil comes from dead plants and animals that lived millions of years ago. This is called the fossil fuel theory. But what if that's not the whole story? There's growing evidence that oil might actually be created deep inside the Earth through natural chemical processes, not from fossils at all. If this is true, it would completely change how we think about energy. The term fossil fuel comes from 18th century scientists who thought oil formed from ancient organic material buried underground. This idea became widely accepted, especially as oil companies like Rockefeller's Standard Oil grew powerful. The message was clear: oil is ancient, limited, and running out. But not everyone agreed. In 1951, a Russian scientist named Nikolai Kudryavtsev proposed that oil actually comes from deep inside the Earth's mantle, the superhot layer beneath the crust, where carbon and hydrogen combine under extreme heat and pressure. This is called the abiogenic theory, meaning not from life. Here's the wrinkle. Some oil fields don't act like they should. According to traditional theory, once you drain an oil well, it should stay empty. But that's not always what happens. In the Gulf of Mexico, scientists found oil fields that seemed to be refilling themselves from deeper underground. In Pennsylvania, old wells that were capped and abandoned in the early 1900s were found to contain oil again decades later. Similar observations have been made in Russia, Vietnam, and the Middle East. Even more surprising, massive oil reserves have been discovered in solid rock where no biological material ever existed, places where, according to fossil fuel theory, there should be no oil at all. The abiogenic theory says oil forms 70 to 250 kilometers deep in the Earth's mantle, where temperatures reach 600 degrees Celsius to 1500 degrees Celsius, and pressures are extreme. Under these conditions, carbon and hydrogen naturally combine to form oil. Scientists have actually recreated this process in laboratories. Swedish researcher Vladimir Kucherov showed that simple chemicals like iron oxide and calcium carbonate, when subjected to high pressure and heat, spontaneously form complex oil molecules. This proves oil can form without biological material. Once formed, this oil migrates upward through cracks and faults in the Earth's crust, eventually pooling in underground reservoirs. In other words, the Earth itself acts like a giant oil refinery. In the 1980s and 1990s, Ukrainian scientists used this theory to explore for oil in an area where traditional methods said there shouldn't be any. They drilled 61 wells and found oil in 37 of them, a 57% success rate that was worth billions of dollars. They even found oil in solid crystalline rock. Scientists have also found oil in places that clearly can't have fossil origins. At underwater volcanic vents where temperatures are too hot for any life to exist, in rocks that formed before complex life evolved on Earth, and even inside diamonds that formed deep in the mantle. Critics point out that oil contains biomarkers, molecules that seem to come from living things. Abiogenic supporters have answers. These molecules could come from microbes that feed on oil as it moves upward through the rock, or they could form naturally through chemical processes. Some biomarkers have even been found in meteorites that never touched life. Frozen methane deposits called methane hydrates cover huge areas of the ocean floor. The total amount of carbon in these deposits is over 1,000 times more than all the carbon in the atmosphere, plants, animals, and known fossil fuels combined. Where did all this carbon come from, if not from life? Scientists also point out that methane and other hydrocarbons exist on planets and moons that never had life, like Saturn's moon Titan. Nature clearly can make these substances without fossils. If oil is being continuously produced deep in the earth, it's not really a limited resource in the way we've been told. This doesn't mean we'll never run out. The process is slow, and the new oil doesn't appear where we need it. But it does mean the Earth's total oil supply could be far larger than we think. This helps explain why predictions of peak oil keep being wrong. For decades, experts have warned us we're about to run out, and yet known oil reserves keep growing. Since 1946, the oil industry has discovered 5 new barrels of oil for every 3 we've used. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Some oil likely does come from biological sources, while some forms through deep earth chemistry. Both processes may contribute to our oil supply. What's important is that the traditional fossil fuel story might be incomplete. If we accept that oil can form abiotically and that reserves can refill from deeper sources, it opens up new places to look for oil, like in solid rock formations that were previously ignored. The debate continues, but the evidence is mounting. The Earth might be a far better oil producer than we ever imagined. Whether the petroleum industry will embrace this new understanding remains to be seen, but the science is too compelling to ignore. Hi, I'm Ellen McCurdy, and I invite you to download my free digital report, The Big 3 Things That Are Harming You and You Don't Even Know It. The link will be in the description, or you can go to my website, triumphandgrace.com. Thank you. Talk to you later.